Hi, Shannon Waller here, and welcome to the Team Success Podcast. What we're talking about is our extraordinary coach culture and the different values, the different tenets that we operate by. And it has really provided a guiding, I almost want to say light for us at Strategic Coach. And I know that we share this document a lot, and it's been very profound for our clients to read this. So that's why I really wanted to share this with you. So we're at number 10, and number 10 is that all progress starts by telling the truth. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate this mindset, this attitude. Partly because for me, I don't do very well with fake. Authenticity and integrity are really personally important to me. I probably would be the world's worst actor because I simply can't fake it very well. And I don't like lying because then I have to remember something. So for me, reality is definitely the way to go. And I really appreciate when there's an environment where we can tell the truth, not in a harsh way, not to use it as punishment, not to use it as a way to beat someone else up, but just as to say what's real. What's so, and that's so refreshing. This is actually very, very tied to us growing as an organization. And I think it's actually really important for every entrepreneurial company, especially, to bring this on as a way of operating, as a way of thinking about things. And it's lovely when you don't actually have to fake things. It makes for a much healthier work environment. Everyone from Patrick Lencioni to Gino Wickman, so two of my favorite people that I really respect with their perspectives on how to run successful, healthy entrepreneurial organizations really have this thing. It's really important to be able to speak up and to speak straight. We've been talking about Collaborative Way a little bit, and Collaborative Way has a whole process as part of their communication methodology about speaking straight. So there's a real mindset around this, and here's the bigger context that might really help you with this particular way of operating. And it really, again, comes back to all progress starts by telling the truth. Progress comes from using your intelligence and creativity to say, yes, this is not working, and this is what I think might be a possible solution. So it's not just complaining. I talked a little bit about complaining versus creating in the previous number 9, having an entrepreneurial attitude podcast. But this really is the recognition of the fact that we are all part of a growing organization, which first of all means that lots of things are working and are contributing to our growth. But it also means that at any given time, there are probably important things that aren't working. How are you handling that? Are you ignoring it? Are you sweeping it underneath the carpet? Are you bypassing it? One of the reasons why I wrote the book Multiplication by Subtraction is to give people the kind of push to pay attention to those things that aren't working, and really B, to give them the confidence to take action. And not necessarily to remove the person, that is by far the last possible step, but just to see, okay, do I need to move someone? Do I need to have a conversation with them? Do they not understand what our values are? Just really work someone into where they can either be a success, or if they can't be a success here, figure out where they can be a success. So really that willingness to tell the truth, to be honest with yourself, and to not, I don't want to say not sugarcoat, but really not to ignore it. I think the biggest issues come when we ignore things that aren't working. It's a little bit like if you're wearing a piece of clothing and there is a tag or there is a seam or something rough, a thread that's sticking out and poking you, and you ignore it. And what happens is you end up with this really tender spot. Eventually it can end up being a blister. It could even end up being a sore. It could end up being infected. Bad things happen when we ignore this. It takes some willingness to say, oh, actually, this is irritating me. I need to do something about it. It's not complaining. It's not expecting someone else to solve it for you. It's actually just recognizing what's not working. So it's really that, again, that willingness to be honest about what's not working for you personally, what's not working for your team, and what's not working for the company. You may have doubts or worries, but rather than keeping them to yourself, you develop a willingness to bring them to the surface and say, this isn't working, and I think it would be better if we did this and this. I was coaching a team actually yesterday on our strategy circle concept. So if you've done workshop 1 in Strategic Coach, you've seen our fabulous tool called the strategy circle. And the strategy circle is a very simple thinking tool that leads you to set a goal in terms of what you want to have happen. Really define the result in terms of what it looks like when it's done and done really, really well. Think of before and after pictures in any of those makeovers, people or home makeovers or what have you. This is the before and after. And then when you're really clear on the result, what are all the obstacles in the way of accomplishing that result? And this is actually a brain ability. The ability to envision the goal and the result is one brain ability. But the second brain ability is really that ability to see everything in the way of you accomplishing your goals. as an individual or as a team. So ignoring those or not paying attention to them or kind of being so insistent on positivity that you just sweep them underneath the carpet, not a good idea. They come back and bite you. And I know this because I'm really good at the vision part and I'm not really very good at obstacles. But I now know, and I am wise enough to, when I don't have a particular capability, I go and partner up with someone who does. So I remember one strategy circle, I'd filled out the whole thing, and there's room for 10 obstacles and 10 strategies. And I showed it to my friend, happened to be my friend Ross. I said, here's the problem, here's the situation. Can you just help me think this through? This is what I've done. So I didn't come with the problem. I came with a series of solutions. He said, Shannon, this is great, except you've missed the most important obstacle. I was like, oh, thank you. And he was completely and totally right. If I talked to him first, I would have saved myself a little bit of time. But I was so ready because I was very committed to that end result. So I went into the situation I was having with another team member, another team leader, and I laid it out in terms of how committed I was to that result, the obstacle that I saw, and the strategies that I was willing to put in place. And the situation resolved in one conversation. It was phenomenal. But if I had not actually been wise enough to go and get the other obstacle that I was missing, may not have turned out so well. And the other times I've tried to think about a whole project, and I know I'm not a detail person. Again, I'm better at the broader vision. And so I know that I will only come up with 3 obstacles out of a potential 10. So I will go to my friends who are much more task focused, who are much more focused on, the nitty gritty of how our systems work. They know far more about how our backstage runs than I will ever know. And also, okay, here's my idea. Here's what I've thought of so far. What am I missing? Now, what's really great about that process is they're like, oh, thank you for including us, because if you went ahead with this, we would have not appreciated it at all because we wouldn't have had a chance to make our input. And then they get to contribute their insight, their wisdom, their capabilities with regard to what could hold us back. And then we work together on what the strategies are. But that ability to identify those obstacles and tell the truth about them is absolutely vital, I think, to entrepreneurial progress and success. And team member progress and success. So I find this so refreshing. First of all, it's a way of looking at things. It's acknowledging the fact as we're growing, things aren't going to work. We're trying them. We're testing them. We're throwing the spaghetti against the wall and see what will actually stick. Some things fall down. We have to pick them up again. But that process of having a way to think things through and not with a lot of emotional judgment. You're going to use your intellectual judgment. This worked or it didn't. That's fine. But you are using all of your creativity and your emotional energy not to blame, not to make someone wrong, not to complain about the fact, why is it like this? Well, because it is. Get used to it. And then move, okay, how can we make it better? How can we solve this? How can we get creative? Who do we know? And that's actually quite a fun, creative, enlivening, collaborative process to get into with people. But you can't do it if you're faking it. You know when the team is not feeling comfortable in telling the truth, when you have a meeting and then people leave and they're chattering in the hallway, they go into someone else's office, a couple of them, and then they have a little side conversation. And when that happens immediately after a meeting, you know that during that meeting, people were not saying what was true for them. So it becomes this talent to be able to draw people out. We've gotten some great coaching from this, especially in the process of collaborative way, with Lloyd Fickett and Krista, his colleague and partner. They're so clear. They you need to actually go around. And so we were doing this practice of making a commitment to come back to the meeting on time. And you don't just say, okay, everyone come back on time. Okay, great, go. No. We actually went around and had people raise their hands. I actually had people say it out loud. There's something different when you're like, are you good with this? Are you good with this? Are you good with this? And then when you do that individually, people say, well, actually, I kind of have a bit of an issue that I can foresee popping up. Can we talk about that? And people don't do it in an aggressive way, in an angry way. They're just, when you actually take the time to stop, which I have to slow down in order to do, but to ask people individually what their take is on things, you get a completely different picture. And for those of us, if you're like me, who tend to like to be moving forward, like to be making progress, like to do it, like to have fun, it can be very tempting to not take that step of going around to every person saying, okay, does this work for you? Does this work for you? Does this work for you? So the more you can build that into your meetings, if you're in a coaching situation, very powerful to do it that way. Don't just assume. I was refreshing my memory of Don Miguel Ruiz's 4 Agreements. So if you've ever read the 4 Agreements, they're absolutely brilliant, phenomenal rules for living, whatever your background. So the 4 agreements are, number 1, be impeccable with your word. Good reason not to complain, by the way. Number 2, and the hardest one, don't take things personally. Which is sometimes why we do not want people to speak straight. It's sometimes why we don't want people to tell the truth, because we're not able to not take things personally. So this is your own growth you need to work on here. And I love the coaching, again, I got from Lloyd and Krista, which was when you're hearing something that you sometimes don't like or don't understand, instead of reacting and getting mad, you ask the question, oh, tell me more. Help me understand. I kept having the situations that what about this situation? What do I do in this situation? What do I do in that situation? And they kept saying, well, you say, help me understand. Shannon, say, help me understand. I'm like, fine, I'll tattoo it on my arm. I kept forgetting that was the strategy. But you want to pause. You want to get to the bottom of it. And when you do, you'll feel it. You're like, okay, we're aligned. We're on the same page. We get each other. And that is where real progress really happens. Number 3 for the 4 agreements, by the way, is don't make assumptions. And number 4 is always do your best. And I really like this one because I'm always doing my best. That's what I strive for. And sometimes I just have to acknowledge that sometimes my best simply isn't very good. And I have a lot of grace and compassion. I try and have that same grace and compassion for other people because I do pretty much give people the benefit of the doubt. And I want to use the word assume here, but number 3 is don't make assumptions. So I'm getting myself into trouble. But I do pretty much presume that people are doing their best. And sometimes it just isn't very good. So again, bring a lot of grace and compassion to that one. Don't make that a perfectionistic standpoint. Don't use it as an excuse to beat yourself or someone else up, but just know that sometimes it's brilliant and sometimes not so much. But that whole point here of being impeccable with your word and don't take things personally, I think really speak very highly to that. All progress starts by telling the truth. And we coach this a lot in our Strategic Coach program. So we have people tell the truth to themselves in tons of different situations about what's working and what's not working. And we create the environment where people can have those conversations. And again, not from a blaming or a complaining way, but in search of and in service of progress. When you're dealing with reality, you have power. When you're dealing with pretend, there's no power there. There's no effectiveness. There's no creativity. So I just really strongly encourage, and I love to create environments with teams where everyone feels really safe enough to speak up. And oftentimes, my experience with team members is they know everything the entrepreneur is up to. The entrepreneur just never knew that. They will often put forth goals and challenges and projects that the entrepreneur had no idea that those were actually top of mind for them. So to be able to get people on the same page and to create an environment where people feel really safe speaking up and talking about what they're excited about and talking about what is working and what isn't working, for me, is just an incredible area of productivity and creativity for teams. So I hope you take a page out of that book and you get inspired to do that too. The last thing I want to leave you with this particular conversation is to really know that the more we tell the truth about our progress, as well as our shortcomings, the faster we're going to progress as a company, which means growth and rewards for everyone in your organization. So again, it's a matter of just being confident in things that you're unique at, very humble in the things that you're not, both as an individual and as a company. That makes you really smart about teamwork. You're not pretending that you're somebody that you're not. You're just incredibly accurate. And people who really know the drill, who know themselves well, who know others well, who know the situation well, I have a ton of respect for because it's very easy to get things done with them. They're not faking themselves or anybody else. So I hope I've inspired you to always start by telling the truth. That to me would be a big win from today's conversation. If you have any questions or comments, please let me know at questions@Strategic Coach. And as always, thank you so much for listening. And here's to your team success. Hi, Shannon here, and thank you very much for listening. If you like what you heard today, please take a moment to rate the Team Success podcast on iTunes. And we'd love it if you'd share the podcast with anyone else who could benefit. If you're interested in learning more about the Strategic Coach program for entrepreneurs, visit us at strategiccoach.com or the Strategic Coach channel on YouTube. For free downloads and more team success strategies, visit teamsuccesshandbook.com.